She was my firstborn child. I was 22 and she was born a few days before my birthday, so I kind of felt like we had this cosmic connection. She was smart, so smart that one time she came home with some homework when she was in kindergarten or something, and she was supposed to put a vowel in to make the word, three-letter word. And she was supposed to put the letter I or something. And she didn't. She put the letter A. She made words, but she put the letter A instead of I, and they gave her the wrong answer. They told her to correct it. So she changed the instructions. And the guy's like, "Why did you just change the instructions?" And she said, "It was too hard to change everything else. I just had to scribble that out." And I said, "I'll back you up on that one." I've been a vet tech for 30 years, and at times, in the early years, I would have to take her to work with me because, we didn't have babysitting or anything like that. And she kind of grew up at the vet clinic, and she went on and became one of the oncology vet techs in town. So she went and did everything that I knew how to do, only better. So I was extremely proud of her for that, even though at the time when I found out that she'd gotten this promotion or worked her way up or however she did it, we were estranged. But I found her on one of the clinic's websites, and it said that she was an oncology technician, and it had a picture of her and her dogs. And I was like running all through the clinic that I was working at. I'm like, "Look at my little girl, look at my little girl, look what she does now." And they're like, "Oh, did she send that to you?" I'm like, "No, she doesn't talk to me right now." But it doesn't matter. Look what she does. We're both very passionate, headstrong women. And she thought she knew everything. And but I'm like, "Okay, if you know everything, then why are you 25 still living at home? You can stay here as long as you want, but there's house rules." And she wanted to do things her way. And I said, "Well, as much as it hurts me, I'm sorry. There's other people, other children that live in this house, and we can't have that." And so she moved out. I was sad about it, but it was the best thing for her. I told her to go grow up and come back and talk to me. And about a little less than a year before she passed, she texted me out of nowhere, and I was at work, and it just about took the breath out of me. I had to sit down, and I was like, "Okay, what's wrong? What happened? You know, what does she need? What went wrong? Because why is she contacting me?" And we just started talking again, and we never brought up the past. Just that part was over. And I think that in time we would have talked about it, but she passed away before that. We got together a few times. I took her out for birthday lunch and things like that. And she finally got to, when I would hug her and tell her I love her, she told me she loved me too. She probably had a bigger problem than I thought she did. That was one of the reasons why I had to ask her to leave, is because I had little kids in the house and she had marijuana and stuff like that she was bringing in, and I had to ask her to, don't, the thing was, don't bring it in. And because at that point she was over 18, and she knew I didn't like it and everything like that, but I'm like, don't bring it in the house. And I kept finding paraphernalia and stuff like that, and I'm like, you gotta go, because I'm not the only one finding this stuff. Your sister and your brother are finding it, and I can't do that. That's not how I want to raise my kids. I didn't raise you that way, and I'm not going to do it for them either. And she was self-righteous and belligerent and everything else as she left. And I knew that she had tried other things with her friends and stuff like that, but she was working 4 jobs and or at least 3 jobs, but she was very, very with it. Like, she was present to her jobs and she was very good at it. And I guess she was just high functioning. But the stuff that she was doing it was like amphetamines was what was in her system, and fentanyl. So what she took, she wasn't taking it to depress herself. She wasn't trying to get a good night's sleep, or she wouldn't have taken amphetamine. She was more than likely trying to stay awake, to stay present for her jobs. And somebody just thought it'd be a good idea to cut it with some fentanyl, I guess. I found out because the police came to our door, and we weren't home. But we have the little Ring doorbell, and we could tell that the police were at the door. And we were assuming that it probably, maybe the only thing we could come up with is maybe my dogs were barking or something, and the neighbor had complained or something like that, because that's the only thing we could come up with. And I was around Galveston at an event, and so my husband called me and said, well, I think you better check out, see what's going on, why the cops were here. And when I called the cops, they're like, well, we'll call you when you get home. And I was like, why can't you just tell me now? And then he's like, well, we'd rather talk to you when you get home. And I've gotten bad news before, like really bad news. And I pulled the car over and I'm like, I already know it's bad. Just tell me, because it's not going to make it any easier if I don't know and I'm driving all the way back. And I talked him into telling me. And I couldn't figure out how to get back home. I couldn't read a map. I couldn't use my GPS. I couldn't figure anything out. Nothing made sense. As I'm slowly trying to navigate my way back home from Galveston, I started thinking about it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this, her boyfriend must have been the one that found her. Oh my gosh, what a horrible thing. And so I called him and I was like, oh my gosh, are you okay? What, how horrible. And he's like, oh, I'm just over at my buddy's house chilling. And I had to pull the car over. And I said, you're what? I'm just over at my buddy's house chilling, watching TV. And then I got to thinking about it. I'm like, I gotta, I'll talk to you later. Because that was just such a wrong answer. Just such a wrong answer for me. And I got to thinking about it. I was like, why didn't you call me? Why didn't you call me at 4 o'clock in the morning when this happened? Why did I find out about it at 1 in the afternoon? Why has she been in a morgue and I didn't know? There was so much that I was trying to understand. And the only thing that I wound up understanding was that it was not understandable. They said they went through the house, the apartment, and it was clean. Its boyfriend is a low-level drug dealer. He's been arrested for it before and after. And I'm thinking to myself, why would, if he called 911 as soon as he found her, why on earth would that apartment be clean? That makes no sense. Especially, there was a little bit of marijuana because nobody gets in trouble for that anymore. But why would a low-level drug dealer not have something in his apartment? And I believe, I can't prove it, that because he says that he was asleep. The last time he saw her was at 11 o'clock. And he was asleep and got up to go to the bathroom and found her at 4 a.m. And that she'd been laying there by herself on the floor, dead for however many hours. I don't believe that's what happened. I think there's more to it. Even her friends had suspicions, anecdotal suspicions, but stuff that they all went to the detective about. We don't believe this. We don't feel this. Something's not right here. This doesn't feel right. And all the detective said was pretty much, he's a young guy. He's probably never had anything this traumatic happen to him before, and he doesn't know how to handle it. Boys will be boys kind of thing. And when I had tried to press the detective, he literally said, "What do you want from me, Mrs. Samuelson? What do you want from me?" My daughter had green hair and a lot of tattoos. But that doesn't mean that she didn't do some amazing things. And that she wasn't capable of so much more. It could happen to anybody. And the best thing that you can do is be educated. And everybody needs to get on board, because if you don't get on board, good. I hope, good for you that you don't have anybody who's died from it or anybody affected by it. But give it a minute. You will. You'll know somebody. Everybody's going to know somebody pretty soon. There's not going to be anybody that doesn't know somebody. And if you don't want it to be in your family directly, help us fight it. Just because you have good kids that you don't think would do anything, that's not true. You never know. And they could be good kids that don't do anything. Somebody could slip them something. You need to fight it. Everybody does. And not just be, oh, well, that's not going to happen to me. Yeah, it could. It probably will.